Okay, so in this first lesson, essentially it's going to go over the basics of the way we talk in statistics and the way we go about completing problems. So we're really just going to learn some of the general vocabulary, and our goal is basically to be able to identify individuals and variables in a set of data and make sure we can classify them correctly as being either quantitative or categorical. Now, if it's your first time doing statistics, I'm going to let you know right now, it's actually going to be a pretty unique change to the type of math that you're used to, and not in a bad way, and actually a really good way. One of the things I really enjoy about teaching statistics is that the problems that that we go through aren't going to be like abstract and weird in the sense where students are going to be like asking like, how is this ever used in the real world? Right away, students in my stats class can tell like exactly how statistics is used in the real world, and it really helps them stay motivated in doing the problems because they make sense, and they can understand them in their like normal everyday lives. And it's also especially good if your major requires you to take stats, because it helps you stay motivated and really helps you put a good, strong effort into your, statistics homework. All right, so let's actually look at a real problem that was actually done in a psychology study. So here we have a case study where we're looking to see if pets or friends help to reduce someone's stress. And so like, they're asking, like, does having a dog or a friend actually help you stay less stressed? Like, is there a difference? So what they did is that they recruited 45 women who said they're dog lovers. 15 of the women were assigned at random to each of 3 groups. So there's 3 groups, 15 women each. One of them, they had one of their good friends present, and another one where they had their dogs present. And the third one, they had nobody present. They were just by themselves. But in each of the situations, they had to do a stressful task. So 3 groups all doing some stressful task, either by themselves, with a friend, or with a dog, or with dogs. And the task was to count backwards by 13 or 17, or 17s. And their average heart rate during the task was measured. And that was what they used to determine how stressed out they were. And here's the data. So you can see, the groups, the P stands for the pet group, and F for the friend, and the C, the control group when the woman was by themselves. And, the question is, does having a pet or friend reduce heart rate during a stressful task? Now, when you first look at this, you have some general intuition on how to answer this problem. You want to see, like, is there a relationship between the group and the heart rate? And your general strategy might be to see where the highest ones are. Like you got this 102, you got this 100, and then you want to see also the lowest ones probably. You got 60 over here, 58, 64 over here. And then you want to see like, well, it looks like the low ones that we looked at, the pets had the 64, but then there was a control group at 62. But then there was also a pet with a 58. The lowest group had a 58 with a pet. And the friends, those are the ones with the 200s. So, you're probably going to be like, yeah, it looks like a pet does help and a friend actually, makes it worse. But the thing is, we can't say this, for certain in the sense that we can like prove it mathematically. We don't just have the tools. And that's essentially what we're going to use. And essentially, that's what we're going to use and to figure out in this chapter. We're going to learn strategies and techniques to be able to answer questions like this, and answer them in the sense where we can say we have proof that we're right with clear, unsubjective evidence. So let's first go over some basic vocabulary that you're going to need to know, and how we study data. So the way we want to go about statistics is to recognize that it's a science. It's a science of data. The data is usually, sets of numbers, types of, types of things, it could be like hair color, gender, it's a set of data. And we need to figure out a technique or a set of strategies that we can use to analyze the data. We have to figure out what the data is saying. And we basically are going to, be organizing them using graphs, tables, all sorts of statistical strategies to be able to, get a good sense of what the data is telling us. And so when we're thinking about data, we like to talk about them as if they're individuals. Individuals don't have to be people. They could be, objects. It could be, animals. It could just be, things. They could be cars. And a variable is, the characteristic of an individual. It could be like, the individual could be, people, and the variable could be hair color, or the variable could be height. Now, how we measure the variables, will vary. We can either measure them, using numbers like, height and weight, pounds, inches, or we can measure them by breaking them into groups. Like maybe it's car brand like Nissan, like Toyota. It could be like hair color, red, purple, black, that sort of thing. So we have, categorical variables or quantitative variables. So now let's look at an example of how this varies within a problem. Okay, so here we have US Census data. And it says we have 10 randomly selected US residents from a recent census. And it's organized in this table: state, first column, number of family members that each one has, and the next one, their age in years, gender, female, male, whether they're married or not, how much they make per year, and how long they take to travel to work in minutes. The first question, what are the individuals? So the individuals are going to be the 10 randomly selected US residents. Those are the things that we're studying. They're people, but that's what we're studying, and that's what the variables or the other values are talking about. So the variables are going to be, the number of family members, the age, gender, their marital status, total income, travel time to work. Now the categorical ones will then be the state, gender, marital status, because we don't use numbers or, values to measure them. And the quantitative variables are going to be the other ones, because we do use numbers to measure them. Now, let's break down what the first individual is in the first row. We're just going to say it's someone, that's a female, 61 years old. They're from Kentucky, have 2 family members. They're married, make $21,000 a year, and they take 20 minutes to get to work. So that's a simple example of how we read a set of data. Now, as you may have known and probably already, covered in, algebra, a variable is, going to be something that takes values that vary. That's why we say variable. They could be different values. As in this case, age, have values that can vary. They're not always going to be the same. Now, when we talk about statistics and we're looking at data, a set of data values, dealing with age, it could be income. You're going to take on some patterns, and we're going to learn later about like different types of patterns called normal distributions, called chi-square distributions. But in general, we like to call them distributions. And what it does is it gives us a sense by making some sort of like shape. You're going to see like a geometrical shape. It could be like a bell curve, a rectangular thing. And it gives us a sense of how often each value occurs within that set of data. Now, there's also a way that we want to go about exploring data. The general strategy is to begin by examining each variable by itself first. First, understand what it means by itself. Then we move on to study how it's related to the other variables. Then we look at how we can represent the data with graphs and numbers called numerical summaries.